Hello spider fans, this is Gar from PredatorOrPreyOnline and this is the Tarantula Cave.
Amazing. Gar completely smashed the first of what I hope will be many guest appearances by other tarantula YouTubers, just introducing the Tarantula Cave and enabling me to help you guys find their channels. There's some great stuff out there. Right, lots to get through today. First of all, some really good news about my Poecilotheria subfusca lowland. This spider has been holed up inside a bit of cork tube after I rehoused it, which you'll be able to see in this video up here. And then those of you who saw my awful news about my P. erminia, my Sama P.S. erminia passing away, will know that that she got entombed and that's why she died. And so I was really worried that that would happen to this Poecilotheria subfusca. So I had to have a look, and this is what happened. So those of you who saw the rehousing video for this spider will remember that this was the setup that I put together. I took out the tube just to check where the spider was, and I had a bit of a fright because I saw this mangled thing in the tube and I thought, oh god, I've lost another one. Turns out it was just a molt, so the spider molted a lot faster than I thought it was going to, and it was just sitting in the bottom of the tube, so I just wanted to make sure it was okay, so I gave it a bit of a gentle nudge with the paintbrush, and as you can see, after the molt, it looks absolutely gorgeous. What an amazing species. Definitely my second favourite Poecilotheria species after Metallica. So really pleased to see that it's doing well. And on the back of moving it, I thought it'd be a really good idea to also include in this video the sexing of this tarantula to try and find out what sex it is. So that's coming up now. Here's the molt that I took out of the cork tube. Yeah, when I saw that in the tube, I was like, oh no, I've lost another one, because it just looked all wrong. But then I worked out it was a molt and rapidly calmed down. So yeah, it was a good molt, not too broken up, so I thought I had a pretty good chance of trying to sex it. As most of you will know, some of you will know, the first step with sexing tarantulas is you get some container with some water and a little bit of washing up liquid just to break the surface layer so that the molt actually sinks into the water properly, and then you just dunk it in the water to loosen it off. The idea is to get the underside of the abdomen fully soaked so that it's really you can really move it around. That's the main thing, because you need to open it up to have a proper look at the base of the abdomen to see what sex a tarantula is. So this is me just messing around with the molt. Trying to get it fully soaked. Once it's soaked, you can then take it out, and after a bit of practice, lay the tarantula out with the legs out so you can see what you're dealing with, make sure that the abdomen's pointing the right way, and then start to unfold it. Unfortunately, in the process of unfolding it, I did manage to tear it because it was a little bit too fragile. But the good news is you can see the uterus externus pretty clearly, but I've shown it with an arrow anyway, just to make sure that you guys can see it. But yeah, it's just a little flap that you can see that's a different colour to the rest of the molt, and pretty obvious in this picture. So very happy to confirm I have a female, because the other one is male. Okay, so that was some really good news. A, not dead, and B, it's a girl. So I now have a pair of Poecilotheria subfusca lowland, so I will be trying to power feed, or at least feed that female more often to get her bigger than the male, should I find myself in a position to breed them. The next thing that happened is I discovered for the first time that I have actually got some kind of fungus growing in one of my curly hair enclosures. So it's my other male, who actually hasn't molted out male yet, but I'm pretty sure it will happen sometime soon. Anyway, yeah, this weird yellow fungus just turned up in the substrate. I think I was keeping it a little bit too moist because I thought the tea would molt sometime soon, and generally when I think they're in pre-molt I try and keep the substrate a lot wetter to increase the humidity to help them make sure they get out of their skin and don't get stuck. So that's just a little thing I do. In this case I think I overdid it basically, so some fungal spores got into the substrate and there's this mould problem. So let me show you the situation. We'll get the lid off. And you'll see in the top right corner a whole load of yellow fungus. That was basically where the water dish was, so it was all happening under the water dish, but also some of it got under the hide. So yeah, water dish out, and then take a look under here. There's the tea, and very beautiful it is too. I do love Honduran Curly Hairs. They are amazing, although unfortunately my batch are all nasty hair flickers, which is a shame because they always flick at me. But yeah, you can see in the bottom sort of left of the picture there's the yellow mould again, just got inside the hide. So yeah, I moved the tarantula into a catch cup just for safekeeping. So there's a lid at one end and another thing at another end, just to keep the lid in place to keep the tarantula inside the bottle. But yeah, fine there. So here's the situation, the hide's out, there's all the mould. So what needs to happen is all of that substrate comes out and give the enclosure a good wash and a dry. And then put new substrate in. This is a mix of a kind of shop bought substrate and just cocoa fibre. And what I'm doing is moistening it just to make sure it's got some moisture in it. And then I'm going to mix it all together so that it's quite a good base layer before I redecorate the enclosure. So yeah, get your hands in, give it a good mix around, give it another bit of a soak. I always do this when I rehouse my tarantulas anyway. I always make sure that the sort of bottom layer of the substrate is wet, and then I've got a bucket with some very dry cocoa fibre in it. So I normally then just add the dry layer over the top so that the tarantula doesn't have to have wet feet all the time, because I found that most of the time if you wet the substrate and it's all wet, then the tarantulas will just climb up the side to avoid being on the wet parts. So yeah, so that's just something I do. It's very simple and straightforward, and it seems to work. Obviously when you're spraying water into an enclosure you end up sticking substrate all around the side of it, so always quite a good idea to use a bit of kitchen towel and push all the substrate down so that you've not got an impaired view into the enclosure. These really useful tubs are really useful, as the name suggests. My only problem with them is they're not very good for looking into, really. You've got that sort of slightly smoky finish, so you can't see that clearly and you have to take the lid off normally. But they are a very cheap alternative to what would otherwise be quite a lot of expensive acrylic or glass terrariums. So that's that job done. Use the paintbrush to push the bits of substrate through the ventilation holes just to keep them clear, smarten it all up a bit. Paintbrushes are incredibly useful for tarantulas. They serve all kinds of functions. Right, bit more of the dry cocoa fibre on the back, and then just try and get the hide back in place in a sensible position. As I say, you can see on the top end of the tub I've put the symbol for male. I did sex this tarantula from its previous molt, and there was definitely nothing going on in terms of uterus externus or any spermatheca, so I'm kind of 100% sure really that it's male. I'm surprised that it hasn't molted yet, but it might have something to do with the fact that there was all that fungus going on. So hopefully now I'm rehousing it, or at least cleaning its enclosure out, there will be a molt coming soon and we'll have another male, which will of course mean more breeding videos, which is exciting for me and hopefully for you. So there we go, all in place. Next is to add a bit more dry earth around the back. I try to slope the enclosures from one side to the other just to give a bit of variation in height. and I just think it looks visually better. Again, the paintbrush comes in incredibly useful because you can dust off the cork bark and make sure it looks all neat and clean. Gives for a better finish on the final enclosure. And then the next step is to add a few sprigs of plastic plants just to make it look a little bit nicer in there. Tidy it all up again with the paintbrush. I decided to add a little bit more of the dried cocoa fibre at the top end just to kind of give the enclosure a bit of a slope, a bit more of a slope, just to make it look a bit nicer. And again, tidying it all up with the paintbrush. Before I can put the tarantula back in, there's a very important step, which is of course to put in a water dish and fill it up. Make sure that the tarantula's got access to water at all times. It's so important for all tarantulas to have ready access to water. That done, we can put our male back into his enclosure. So here he is. He was pretty calm really, but as I said, all of my curly hairs are very quick to flick urticating hairs. For those of you who don't know, these hairs, if they get on your skin, can cause irritation depending on how sensitive your skin is. I know for me, probably my arms are fine, but I did have an experience of one of my curly hairs running up my neck and kicking hairs, and that was not fun for a few days. I was severely itchy. But yeah, not too bad really. Again, that's where the paintbrush is useful. If I'd been using my hand to prod him back into the enclosure, it would have been perhaps a different experience. As you can see, he's a beautiful, beautiful tarantula. Just to get ahead of the game in terms of the mould, I thought I'd add a few springtails to the enclosure. So this is just a colony I bought for about £5 a few weeks ago. I thought I'd chuck some of these guys in because they eat mould and they clean up the tarantula poop and stuff, and in theory you end up with a self-cleaning enclosure. Springtails do need a lot of moisture, so I know I'm putting them at the other side to the water dish, but they'll very soon find the water dish, and what will happen is they'll probably all congregate under the water dish, so that when I overfill it they'll have enough moisture to survive. But for now I didn't want to stress the tarantula out too much, so I put them in this top corner, but they'll be fine. Here's a close-up of them. Very cool little animals. Who doesn't love Honduran curly hairs? They're just such great looking teas. So we've had quite a few moults in the tarantula cave recently. I'm going to talk you through them now. First up, we've got my green bottle blue, the Brachypelma pubescens. I know this girl's a female, so I don't need to sex the molt. Then we've got my female Honduran Curly Hair. That one I wasn't sure about the sex of, but given its age relative to the rest of the group, I'm 95% sure it's female, but I will double check the molt, but that's more great news. Other than that, we've got my wonderful Brachypelma vegans, looking amazing. I love how black they are post-molt. I haven't sexed the molt from the vegans yet, so when I do the molt for the other curly hair, who I think is female, just to double check, I'll do the vegans as well, and I'll probably post the pictures on my Instagram feed, so check that out if you want to find out. Finally, these aren't new molts, but some of you will remember that my second Acanthoscurria geniculata molted a while back, and I hadn't checked the sex of that. Well, I can confirm now that that is 100% female, very, very obvious uterus externus and spermatheca. So that looks like this. And in sad, shocking news, my Poecilotheria metallica managed to ditch its molt out of where it was hiding it, so I did get hold of it, and it's turned out to be a boy. The molt looks like this. You can really clearly see there's nothing going on there. So I have a male Poecilotheria metallica. In some ways that's a good thing because I'll be able to send them to people to breed, but maybe I will be in the market for a female Poecilotheria metallica of a larger size in the near future, which is potentially quite exciting. And finally, the BTS, the British Tarantula Show 2018. There are a great many people who are part of the YouTube tarantula community in the UK attending that event throughout the day. So if any of you are going, you are going to have a great time spotting YouTubers. A lot of us are hoping to meet up. I'm probably only going to get there in the afternoon, so I don't know who's going to still be there. But anyone who still is there, I will be stalking them and saying hi. So if you are going to the BTS and you want to come and say hi to me, please do. I'll probably be trying to wrangle a small angry boy around the show because my son is coming with me, and you can't really miss him because he's a little ball of catastrophe. So I'll just be looking stressed out, but don't let that put you off. I do want to see you guys, and I'm really looking forward to the show. Have not decided what I will be buying, if anything, but I've never been to the BTS before, so I will be like a kid in a candy store and unable to make any decisions. So any help with that would be much appreciated on the day. It's happening on Sunday, and it's going to be amazing. Any suggestions that you guys have for things that you'd like to see on this channel that I might be able to pick up at the BTS, do let me know in the comments below. As you know, I'm not someone who's going to get into the hundreds of animals because I know for a fact that I will not be able to look after them all to the level that they should be looked after. But definitely 1 or 2 additions is definitely on the cards for this weekend. So if there's something you particularly would like to see, do suggest it. I'll take your comments completely on board and give them some thought. Otherwise, I'll just be running around like a headless chicken at the show, not knowing what to do. So yes, please get involved. That's what this is all about, sharing the journey. This video has mostly been about rehousing and sexing tarantulas. If you want to see more of my videos about both of those topics, I've linked them below. Please do check them out. I think you'll find them useful. In the meantime, look after yourselves. I might see you on Sunday. Thanks for watching.